Hi everybody, welcome to lesson 5. This is the second part of the topic, the effect of the Wall Street crash. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on looking at 5 different responses to the Wall Street crash, 5 memoirs, 5 diary extracts, and thinking about how the Wall Street crash affected individual people. Before that, we'll have a look at the answers to lesson 4. So starting with the questions in lesson 4. Number 1. How did the crash affect businessmen? Well, there's lots of different answers that you could write down. Basically, the businessmen lost money. They lost money because people didn't want to buy as much from their businesses. There was less demand for products, and so businessmen might have to close their factories. Now, how did the businesses open the factories? Well, often they borrowed money. So if they were borrowing money and then the factory is closing, then they would have a debt that they need to pay back. So they would have problem with their bank, with their creditors, the people that lent money to the businesses. How did the crash affect banks? Well, banks were owed money. Banks had lent money to businessmen, and they also lent money to individuals. And during the stock market crash, the value of stock went down, the value of businesses went down, and people lost everything they had. So a lot of the money that they had lent to people could not be paid back. When people were worried that the banks might not have enough money, then they started to try and withdraw all of their money at the same time. This was a run on the banks. So lots of people were trying to take out their money at the same time. The banks simply didn't have enough money for all the people that wanted their money out. They were asking for customers, for individuals, for businesses to repay their debts, but many of them could not because they had lost everything. In 1929 alone, over 700 banks closed because they ran out of money. Question 3. How did the crash affect normal workers? Well, the normal workers lost their jobs, and because they lost their job, they could not pay back their debt. They might have borrowed money to buy shares. They might have bought items like radios or cars on credit, but when they lost their job, they did not have any money to pay back what they owed. So with no income and high debts, many of them had to leave their homes. Some went to live in the street. Others had to rely on charity, on churches or other people to give them food to feed their families. Next, we've got a source question. It says, what does this photograph show? Well, we can see that the photograph is a car, and it says that the car is for sale. It says $100 will buy this car, but must have cash. Cannot buy now and pay later. Lost all on the stock market. So this shows a man trying to sell his car. The sign says that he had lost all on the stock market, which means he had debt. He wanted to sell the car for just $100. Do you remember how much a car cost? Well, a new Model T around 1929 was selling for $290, or a cheap car might be $260. So he was trying to sell his car for about 1/3 of what he spent on the car. He would lose money. But because he had nothing left, he was desperate. He was selling the car for such a low price because of supply and demand. Nobody wanted to buy. Everybody had lost money. And so he was trying to sell his car for whatever he could get. Okay, lesson 5 on page 31. Here are 5 stories, 5 reports from different people. Let's read them together. The first one. The factory I worked for shut down last week. They say there are no more orders and no one will buy their goods. It's true. No one I know has any money. Some of my friends are living on the streets. Others have to queue every day for bread at the local Salvo Army soup kitchen. Salvo Army is a Christian organization, and a soup kitchen is a place that gives food for free. I need to sell my shares, but no one will buy them. They're worthless. But that doesn't stop the bank demanding that I repay the original amount. I told them I can't, but they just don't listen. So this is from a factory worker in 1930. The factory that he worked for closed down, so he lost his job because nobody wanted to buy anything. Some of his friends were living in the streets, they lost their home. Some of them had no money for food and they had to get charity. The factory worker had bought shares and he wanted to sell them because the price went down, but nobody would buy. He also has a debt to the bank. Let's look at the next one. This is from a New York banker's diary. I want to die. I've lost everything. My home, my job, my savings. I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to tell my wife. One of my friends committed suicide this morning. I know how he must have felt. This banker said he'd lost everything. He had no job, no house, nothing. All his money had gone. And he had to tell his wife. He understands why his friend, another banker, had killed himself. The next one is from a socialite. A socialite means a rich lady who never had a job but liked to party. The days used to be such fun. Endless shopping trips for the new fashions with the girls, lunchtime drinks and evening parties. Now I have nothing. No one will buy my photographs. No one has any money. That means no parties, no more money, not even enough for a packet of cigarettes. My banker said that my shares are worthless and the bank wants everything back. Here is another one who had bought shares and she had a debt to the bank. Before, she used to have fun every day. She used to go shopping with her girlfriends. They used to go for parties and drinking. And now nobody has money, not even for cigarettes. The only job she had was taking photographs, but photographs are luxury items. Only people that are rich, that have lots of money, will buy. And when the economy is going down, nobody will waste their money on photographs. Now, the American journalists. In the state of Washington, I was told that forest fires were started by farmers trying to earn a few dollars as firemen. In the state of Oregon, I saw rotting apples and sheep farmers feeding mutton to buzzards. So this is a journalist writing about what he's seen, and he's writing about a different place. He's writing about the agriculture region. He said, some places there are farmers setting fire to the forest because if there's a fire, the government will pay the farmer to put out the fire. So the farmers are being very naughty. They start the fire themselves and then they go and put out the fire so that the government will give them a salary. In Oregon, he sees the apples rotting in the field because nobody can spend money for the salary for the worker to pick them. Also, nobody has money to buy them. And the sheep farmers are feeding mutton to the buzzards. Mutton is sheep meat. It's old lamb. And buzzards are big birds. So the farmers are feeding their meat to the birds because nobody has money to buy. Now you might think that's a waste, but think about it. If a farmer wants to kill the sheep, he has to hire the workers and pay them money. He has to give money to the factory where they kill the sheep. He has to give money for the transportation. If nobody has money, nobody will buy. So if the farmer spends money killing the animal, they will lose that money if nobody can buy. So it's cheaper for the farmer just to let the meat stay in the field and be eaten by the birds. And the last one is from a factory owner. I'm going to close the factory for a while. We are not making any money at the moment. We still have some money in the bank and we have the building, but if I don't close, I'll risk my own house. I feel sorry for the workers, but what can I do? Now here is somebody that's not quite as bad as the others. This factory owner still has some money in the bank and he still owns the land where the factory is built. But if he stays open, he has to pay the salary of the workers. If he pays the salary of the workers, he will lose money, and then the bank might take his house or his factory to pay the debt. So he's going to close the factory. He feels bad about the workers, but he says, what could he do? He has no choice. Now, just by reading through these 5 examples of what life was like for individuals, you will see that almost everybody, whether they were rich or poor before, whether they were in banking or factory worker or farmers, everybody was losing during the Great Depression. Many people had debts to the bank. Many people were worried about where they would live. Many people worried. We'll answer some questions on this and then we'll talk about it a little bit more on Friday. So now that we've looked at those together, the assignment, the quiz this time is a little bit different. If you go to the Moodle, you will find a forum open underneath this video. If you open the forum, you'll see that you can make a post. In the post, I need you to write a couple of paragraphs. You can talk about how people's lives were similar and different during the Wall Street crash. And also imagine that you were a banker. What would you have done? When you finish writing your ideas, take some time to read other people's and comment on at least 3 of your friends' work. If anybody asks you a question, reply to the question